Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent. After finishing with the Netheril, I went looking for the next big section of Forgotten Realms history, and I believe the next major event is the Time of Troubles, but we're currently in negative 339 DR after Karsus' Folly, and the Time of Troubles occurs in 1358 DR, so we'd be losing out on 1600 years of history. So with that, I wanted to talk about a few things that happened right after the fall of Netheril, starting with Gauntlgrym. Gauntlgrym is an ancient magical dwarf city deep underground. It was built around negative 335 DR as a joint effort between human wizards and the Delzun Dwarves. Now, Delzun was a great dwarven kingdom in the north that lasted from negative 3,900 DR to negative 100 DR. They mined, and in profitable areas they built surface kingdoms such as Citadel Adbar, Citadel Felbar, Mithril Hall, and Sundabar. During the Delzun expansion, the dwarven miners dug the first tunnels and chambers that would become known as Gauntlgrym. These tunnels had such unusual veins of magical ore, it seemed the perfect place to set up shop. As they kept digging, though, they found the source of all this magic, a giant sleeping trapped primordial from the Dawn War. It was a fire primordial named Magira, so the dwarves said thanks but no thanks and sealed up all of the tunnels. Before the fall of the Netheril, the Netherese refounded and helped rebuild the city of Ilisk, which is present-day Luskan, after its earlier destruction. Now, because of Karsus' Folly, the surviving Arcanists wandered about looking for a new home, many of them fleeing the Farum. Now, Ilisk became a prime candidate because the Netherese were already kind of there working with the governments, etc., and setting it up. One such Arcanist, Melathar, arrived in Ilisk, fleeing the Farums, and ended up sacrificing himself to save Ilisk. He cast a spell to magically erect a tower called the Host Tower of the Arcane, as well as huge stone walls and spell wards that protected Ilisk. But unfortunately, casting this spell was too much for him, and he ended up losing his life in the process. Over the next several years, more Netherese refugees migrated to Ilisk as their homes in Low Netheril were wasted away from the Farum's life-draining magic. Now, in negative 335 DR, the Arcanist Marin discovered the primordial creature Magira and wanted to exploit its magical powers. He contacted the dwarves of Delzun and created a joint effort between Delzun and the wizards of Ilisk to create Gauntlgrym. Marin's goal was to use the primordial to create exceptional pieces of metalwork, but keeping control of the primordial took top priority. Marin and elven wizards of Ilyanbruin created a root system with the Host Tower of the Arcane to reach out to the primordial. Then they cast a very complex spell that opened these roots to the plane of water, which kept the primordial subdued. Gauntlgrym was completed in negative 321 DR and became home to dwarves from Clan Goldspire, humans from Ilisk, and Netherese refugees from around the area. The city was built on a huge scale, with many doorways constructed at a size that would allow dragons to pass through. The city was adorned with icons to the dwarven pantheon, and most doors in the city were protected and could only be opened by a Delzun dwarf. The primordial was at the heart of Gauntlgrym in an area known as the Great Forge. Here they used Magira in the fiery pit as the power source for all their item construction. Any weapon or tool made in the furnaces of the Great Forge were imbued with tiny amounts of primordial essence. In negative 111 DR, there was a massive orc rampage across northern Faerun, dubbed the Orc Marches, and Delzun was devastated. Gauntlgrym was lost and Ilisk fell, although most of the people in Ilisk escaped by sea or magic. The elven communities ended up allying together and stopped the orcs at the High Forest. Afterwards, Gauntlgrym was briefly reoccupied by humans in 141 DR, but an invasion of Illithids with mind-controlled lycanthropes in 153 DR drove them out of the city, and it was left to the mind flayers for the next millennium. The dwarven city is made popular in the R.A. Salvatore book Gauntlgrym, so for further reading, you should check out that series. So that's a glimpse of what's happening in northwestern Faerun, but I wanted to touch on what the gods were doing at this point. There was a fight with some of the gods called the Dawn Cataclysm. And sadly, there's not much information about it, and apparently Wizards of the Coast is just not offering information about it, but it's still interesting enough to talk about. There was a deity named Lathander, who was the deity of creativity, dawn, renewal, birth, spring, youth, a bunch of goodly things. He disliked undead and favored creatures who planted new life. He was neutral good, but he hated the evil gods of Faerun. Now, Lathander had a grandiose plan to completely change the Forgotten Realms pantheon in his own image. He wanted to kill all of the evil gods and become the head deity. What exactly was his plan and how he implemented it is unknown to us mortals. However, we do know he was unsuccessful, but he did cause some chaos in the pantheon. For example, somehow Lathander influenced Myrdain and Umberlee to fight. Maybe, ? It's not clear, but Myrdain is the goddess, or was the goddess of reason, and Umberlee is the goddess of the sea, and Myrdain drowned at the hands of Umberlee. And this event was linked to the destruction of the empire of Jahamdath beneath an enormous tsunami in negative 255 DR. Also, because of the Dawn Cataclysm, the deity Tyche was sundered in two by Saloon. She was split into Tymora, the goddess of good luck, and Beshaba, goddess of misfortune. Not connected per se to the actions of Lathander, but it also occurred around the same time and is interesting nonetheless. Mystra created a position of super mage on Faerun called Magister, and Azuth became the first Magister, a title granted to a most promising mortal pupil of magic. Azuth was power-hungry, and he sought to steal a portion of the demigod Savris's power. This failed and caused a rivalry between the two of them, culminating in a really sweet wizard demigod battle that shattered a mountain and created a deep lake. Azuth won the fight by imprisoning Savris in a gem that sat atop his wizard's staff, creating the Scepter of Savris, which the stats can be found in the book Volo's Guide to All Things Magical. And the staff is pretty sweet. And keep in mind, these are AD&D stats, but it's a +5 quarterstaff with the power to imprison any creature struck that failed a saving throw versus spell. The bearer of the scepter can cast any priest or wizard spell from the School of Divination merely by requesting the name of the spell. And the large diamond on the tip of the scepter acts as a powerful crystal ball. Now Azuth, winning the battle against Savris, and with the help of Mystra, his lover, ascended to god status. He became known as the deity of spellcasting. Now Savris had a small bit of control over the scepter and was able to teleport the scepter away from Azuth, and it was found by Saloon Silverhand, a chosen of Mystra, who used the magical staff for many years before returning it to Azuth. And that's where we're going to end today. I think we'll jump ahead a few centuries to the next big event in Forgotten Realms history, the Time of Troubles. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed this series, please like and subscribe and leave me a comment. I'll try to answer any questions that I can. And as always, thank you for watching.